Look around you right now, not at the screen, but at your life. The conversations you have each day, the voices that echo in your mind when you face a difficult decision, the energy you feel when you walk into a room full of certain people versus others. That invisible ecosystem surrounding you, it's not just background noise. It's the single most powerful force shaping who you are becoming. I want you to imagine something with me. Picture two seeds identical in every way. Same genetics, same potential. You plant one in rich soil beside a thriving oak tree whose roots share nutrients and whose branches provide just enough shade to protect from harsh sun. You plant the other in compacted dirt next to a black walnut tree that secretes juglone, a natural toxin that stunts the growth of nearby plants. Same seed. Radically different outcomes, not because of the seed's worth, but because of its environment. You are that seed, and the people you allow consistent access to your mind, your time, and your emotional energy, they are your soil. Today, we're not talking about removing people as an act of cruelty or judgment. We're talking about the sacred responsibility of curating your inner circle with the same intentionality you'd use to design your career, your health routine, or your financial future. This isn't about being selective or elitist. It's about survival, emotional, psychological, and spiritual survival in a world that constantly demands your energy. Let me be clear from the start. This talk isn't about discarding friends because they're imperfect. We're all imperfect. It's not about abandoning family members during hard times. That's not wisdom. That's cowardice. And it's certainly not about judging people based on their background, beliefs, or circumstances. That's prejudice disguised as self-care. No. What we're discussing today is far more nuanced and far more important. Recognizing and creating distance from patterns of behavior that drain your spirit, distort your self-perception, and quietly sabotage your growth often while disguised as friendship, love, or loyalty. These aren't bad people. Many have good intentions, but good intentions without emotional maturity create collateral damage. And you reading this right now deserve to protect your potential from that damage. Let's talk about 3 relationship patterns that silently steal your future if you don't recognize them early. You know them. They're the people who make every interaction feel like an emotional roller coaster. One day they're your biggest supporter. The next, they're distant because you didn't respond to their text within 3 minutes. They share their crises with theatrical intensity, but change the subject when you mention your own struggles. They create emergencies where none exist. Missed calls become betrayals. Casual comments become personal attacks. These individuals don't want connection. They want an audience for their emotional turbulence. And they've mastered the art of making you feel responsible for stabilizing their inner chaos. Here's the dangerous illusion they create. They make you believe that intensity equals intimacy. That because conversations with them feel dramatic and consuming, they must be meaningful. But real intimacy isn't exhausting. Authentic connection doesn't leave you drained, anxious, or walking on eggshells. Healthy relationships have rhythm. They have moments of depth and moments of lightness. They don't demand constant emotional triage. The energy vampire operates on a simple but devastating equation. Your stability exists to manage their instability. They will unconsciously, sometimes consciously manufacture crises to keep you engaged because your attention is their currency. And while you're busy putting out their fires, your own dreams smolder unattended. I'm not suggesting you abandon someone going through genuine hardship. Compassion is essential. But there's a profound difference between supporting a friend through depression and becoming the unpaid therapist for someone who refuses to do their own inner work while expecting you to carry their emotional weight indefinitely. The boundary isn't cruelty, it's clarity. You can say, I care about you and I want to see you thrive. I'm not equipped to be your primary emotional support. Have you considered speaking with a professional who can give you the tools you deserve? That's not rejection. That's redirecting love toward a solution rather than enabling dependency. When you remove or significantly limit these energy vampires from your daily emotional diet, something remarkable happens. You rediscover your own emotional baseline. You remember what peace feels like. You notice your capacity for joy expanding because it's no longer being siphoned off to fuel someone else's turbulence. Your creativity returns because your mental space is no longer occupied by their dramas. This isn't selfishness, it's stewardship. You are the guardian of your own energy, the very resource required to build the life you envision. Protect it fiercely. These are perhaps the most insidious relationship toxins because they wear the mask of practicality. They're the relatives who say, that's a nice hobby, but when are you getting a real job? The friends who respond to your vision with immediate focus on obstacles rather than possibilities. The colleagues who label your ambition as naive or unrealistic. They don't shout down your dreams. They quietly sandpaper them away with well-intentioned skepticism until what remains feels small enough to fit inside their limited worldview. Dream diminishers operate from one of two places, either their own unhealed wounds around risk and failure or a genuine but narrow desire to protect you from pain. Neither motivation justifies the impact. When someone consistently responds to your aspirations with immediate focus on why they won't work without ever exploring how they might, you're not receiving wisdom. You're receiving projection. Here's what they rarely admit. Their realism is often fear wearing a lab coat. They've built a life within safe boundaries and now feel threatened by anyone who dares to question those boundaries. Your ambition becomes an uncomfortable mirror reflecting their own compromises. So they try to shrink your vision to a size that no longer makes them feel restless about their own choices. The most dangerous form of dream diminishing comes from people who love you. Parents who sacrifice their own dreams may unconsciously sabotage yours out of fear that your success will highlight their regrets. Partners who feel insecure may subtly undermine your growth because your evolution threatens the dynamics of your relationship. This isn't about cutting off everyone who expresses concern. Wise counsel includes thoughtful questions about execution, but there's a universe of difference between how will you handle the financial risk during the first year, and you'll never make it. People like us don't succeed in that field. Protect your vision like it's the most valuable asset you own, because it is. Your vision is the blueprint of your future self. Every time you share it with a dream diminisher and absorb their skepticism, you're allowing them to scribble on that blueprint. Do it enough times and you'll forget what your original design looked like. Create distance not through dramatic confrontation, but through strategic redirection. Share your dreams with people who have the emotional capacity to hold space for possibility. Find mentors who've walked similar paths. Join communities where ambition is celebrated, not suspect. And when dream diminishers offer unsolicited skepticism, Thank them politely and change the subject. You don't owe anyone access to your vision, especially those who consistently respond with contraction rather than expansion. When you stop feeding your dreams to skeptics, something magical occurs. Your belief in yourself strengthens because it's no longer being diluted by external doubt. You begin making decisions from internal conviction rather than external validation. And that shift from seeking approval to trusting your own compass is where true power is born. This pattern reveals itself slowly, like ink spreading in water. At first, everything seems reciprocal, but over time, you notice a pattern. They reach out primarily when they need something, a connection, a favor, advice, emotional support. But when you're in need, silence, or worse, subtle resentment that you're bothering them. Value extractors view relationships through a transactional lens, but hide this behind the language of friendship. They keep mental ledgers of what you owe them while forgetting what they owe you. They celebrate your successes publicly, but privately feel diminished by them. They want proximity to your growth without doing the work themselves, hoping some of your momentum will rub off without requiring their own effort. The most painful form of value extraction comes disguised as mentorship or partnership. Someone positions themselves as your guide while actually using your energy, ideas, or network to advance their own agenda, then takes credit for the results you co-created. Or a business partner who contributes minimally but expects equal rewards because we're a team. These relationships feel subtly off, not dramatically abusive, but consistently unbalanced. You find yourself giving 70% while receiving 30%, and when you gently name the imbalance, you're labeled selfish or keeping score. But healthy relationships don't require scorekeeping because the exchange feels naturally reciprocal. When you constantly feel like you're carrying the emotional or practical weight of a relationship, that's data, not paranoia. Value extractors operate from scarcity consciousness. They believe success, attention, and opportunity are limited resources. So when you rise, they feel smaller. They cannot genuinely celebrate your wins because in their worldview, your gain is their loss. This creates a toxic undercurrent where they unconsciously, sometimes consciously sabotage your momentum through backhanded compliments, strategic silence during your moments of need, or subtle undermining disguised as helpful feedback. Creating boundaries with value extractors requires discernment. Not every relationship needs perfect 50-50 balance at every moment. Life has seasons where one person needs more support, but healthy relationships have rhythm. Seasons of giving and receiving, that balance over time. Value extractors create permanent imbalance. The boundary here isn't necessarily severance, it's recalibration. You can transform transactional dynamics by becoming consciously selective about what you share and when. You can respond to requests with, I'd be happy to help when I have capacity. Let me check my schedule and get back to you. This simple pause breaks the pattern of immediate availability that extractors depend on. Most importantly, stop justifying your boundaries to people who benefit from your boundarylessness. You don't owe an explanation for protecting your time, energy, or resources. I'm focusing on my priorities right now is a complete sentence. I need to honor my own capacity requires no further defense. When you stop being a source to be extracted from and become a whole person with your own needs and boundaries, something profound shifts. You attract relationships built on mutual respect rather than utility. People begin engaging with you for who you are, not what you can provide. And that is the foundation of relationships that nourish rather than deplete. The courage to curate, it's not rejection, it's evolution. I want to address the guilt many of you feel about creating distance. You worry you're being harsh, ungrateful, or abandoning people who need you. Let me offer a different perspective. The most compassionate thing you can do for someone stuck in destructive patterns is to stop enabling those patterns through your presence. When you remain in a draining relationship out of guilt, you're not helping the other person. You're preventing them from experiencing the natural consequences that might catalyze their growth. And you're sacrificing your own potential on the altar of their comfort. That isn't love. That's codependency wearing a martyr's mask. Creating healthy distance isn't about dramatic cutoffs, though sometimes those are necessary. It's about subtle shifts, responding to texts less immediately, declining invitations that consistently drain you, redirecting conversations away from drama, sharing less of your vulnerable dreams with skeptics. These small acts of self-protection accumulate into profound life transformation. Remember, you cannot pour from an empty cup, and you certainly cannot build a magnificent future while constantly refilling other people's cups at the expense of your own. This curation process isn't permanent exclusion, it's seasonal discernment. People grow, patterns shift. Someone who was an energy vampire during their early 20s might do the inner work to become emotionally regulated by their 30s. Leave room for growth, both theirs and yours. But don't sacrifice your present well-being on the uncertain hope of their future evolution. Your circle should reflect who you are becoming, not just who you've been. As you grow, your relationships must either grow with you or naturally fall away. That's not failure. That's evolution. Trees don't apologize for shedding leaves that no longer serve their growth. Neither should you. Before you close this talk, I want to give you a practical tool, not just inspiration. Take out your phone or a notebook and complete this simple audit. List the 10 people you spend the most time with in person or digitally. Not just friends, include colleagues, family members, even online communities you engage with daily. For each person, answer honestly, after interacting with them, do I generally feel more energized or more drained, more confident in my path or more doubtful? Inspired to grow or content to stay comfortable? Seen and accepted or judged and diminished? Identify patterns. Are there 2 to 3 people who consistently leave you feeling diminished? Not because they're evil, but because their current emotional capacity, life stage, or behavioral patterns don't align with your growth trajectory. Create one small boundary this week. Not a dramatic confrontation, just one act of self-protection. Perhaps you mute a social media account that triggers comparison, or you decline an invitation that would drain your energy before an important project, or you simply pause before responding to a text that typically pulls you into drama. This isn't about building walls. It's about installing gates, conscious entry points that honor your energy and purpose. The beautiful truth about boundaries. Here's what nobody tells you about creating healthy distance. The right people will understand. They might even respect you more, because boundaries aren't rejection. They're self-respect made visible, and self-respect is magnetic. It attracts people who value authenticity over availability, depth over drama, and mutual growth over dependency. The people who leave when you set boundaries, they weren't in your life for you. They were there for what you provided, your energy, your validation, your stability. Their departure isn't a loss. It's a purification. It creates space for relationships built on genuine connection rather than utility. And the most beautiful part, as you curate your circle with intention, you become more present and generous within your remaining relationships. When you're not emotionally depleted by energy vampires, you have authentic presence for friends who reciprocate. When you're not defending your dreams to skeptics, you have creative energy to actually build them. When you're not being extracted from, you have genuine abundance to share freely. This is the paradox of healthy boundaries. By protecting your energy, you become more capable of meaningful connection. By removing what diminishes you, you create capacity for what elevates you. Your life is your legacy, protected soil. You are not responsible for fixing everyone you meet. You are not obligated to remain in relationships that consistently diminish your spirit. You are not selfish for prioritizing your growth. You are a seed with magnificent potential. And seeds don't apologize for needing good soil. They don't feel guilty for withering in toxic environments. They simply respond to their conditions with biological honesty. Be that honest with yourself. The world needs what you carry, the ideas not yet voiced, the creations not yet built, the love not yet shared. But that potential can only flourish in nourishing soil. And you, yes, you have the power and the responsibility to curate that soil. Not through judgment, not through cruelty, but through the quiet courage of choosing yourself, of honoring your energy as sacred, of recognizing that the most powerful statement you can make about your self-worth is who you allow consistent access to your inner world. Remove not people, but patterns that steal your light. Create distance not from humanity, but from behaviors that contradict your growth. And in that space you create, plant new relationships, water existing ones that reciprocate, and watch what grows when your soil finally nourishes rather than depletes. Your future self is waiting in that garden. Go meet them.